starting a school is even harder because you need to make people believe that they are able to trust you to take the hearts and minds of their children, even though you are new. You are untested. So creating a market is really, really pretty brutal. And importantly, doing so in a foreign country where lots of the central conceits are just different is really, really challenging. Just the politics and the bureaucracy and
Sure.
the language and the culture and climate and all of that. So, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our next podcast episode. This is Aryeh Eisenberg from Edu-Together, and we are happy today to welcome Mr. Craig Gemmell to our podcast. Craig is the president of Brewster Academy and of Brewster Academy International. And Craig, you're going to tell us all about those different roles and exactly what they mean and what you do. But we're so happy to have you with us today. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So let's dive in. Brewster Academy or BA International, I should say. Tell us about those different institutions and what exactly your role is in the school and in BA International.
Thank you. Yes, I will say that first and foremost, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher at core. I've been a teacher for
Amazing.
35 years. And it just so happens that the role I'm playing in teaching kids is making sure that the conditions are appropriate so that teachers can do their work. And
so important.
And for that, to that end, I was the head of school at Brewster Academy, a 204-year-old New England boarding school on the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire.
Wow.
This magical place where golden retrievers run around and kids play soccer well into the night, and teachers live and work together and with their students. These are kind of institutions that I didn't even know existed when I was
Wow.
age to go to those places. So I was the head of school there for a long time and recognized the power and influence of the particular kind of education at this particular school, radically student-centered, wildly team-based approach to serving the needs of a cognitively diverse population. I saw the power of that and wanted more of that kind of education in the world. So I was lucky to have this remarkable associate head who I just walked into her office one day and asked Christy Karen if she wanted to be the head of school so that I could go make more Brewsters. And she said, yeah, I guess so. And so I pitched to the board, and that was in 2020. I
Wow.
officially became president of Brewster Academy and BA International in July of 2021. But for a bunch of years, I was working on this idea of making this network of schools internationally, and moved to Madrid shortly after making this leadership transition, which was super easy. I basically moved out of my office. I moved all of her stuff in on June 30th, and she arrived on July 1st, and she was the head of school. And
Wow. If
and
only it were always that simple, right?
exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, so she became the head of school. I then kind of basically moved to Spain to figure all of the details.
Incredible.
We had found some wonderful investors. We had found some wonderful real estate, but then it was just about kind of getting boots on the ground and figuring out how to make the real estate work, figure out how to hire teachers, figure out how to enroll students, figure out how to make a program that was appropriate for a K through 12 audience, having been only a 9 through 12 educator, a K through 12 audience that begins with 3-year-olds, by the way.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, figuring out how to do so in this multinational context that is this global capital.
So you really had the opportunity to build a school from the ground up, both figuratively and literally.
Absolutely.
That is so cool. And I'm sure most heads of school, most principals do not have that kind of unique experience. So
no, but I think so many educators, and I wonder if you've ever had this feeling. So many educators say that they're the one thing that they regret never having done when they finished teaching was being able to start a school, right?
Oh,
so
I say that I say that all the time, but you actually made the dream come true, Craig. So that's incredible.
Well, I will say that when the dust settles and we have 8 or 10 schools in this network, and we're already we're doing construction on our third. So I think
Wow.
I will go into witness protection then. But when I write a memoir, it will be 1,001 reasons not to start a school, colon, a success story, right? Because
I love it.
it's just starting anything is really hard. Starting a school is even harder because you need to make people believe that they are uh, able to trust you to take the hearts and minds of their children, even though you are new, you are untested. So creating a market is really, really pretty brutal. And importantly, doing so in a foreign country where the lots of the central conceits are just different is really, really challenging. Just the politics and the bureaucracy and
Sure.
the language and the culture and climate and all of that. So
So,
yeah.
so I was going to ask you, coming to Spain, Madrid specifically to start your school must have provided you with additional challenges, not just building a school, because, listen, we know the US educational system, we know the US geography. Coming to Spain to do this, that probably added a layer of complexity or a layer of challenge that would not have existed had you done this in New York or in California or any place else in the US for that matter. And I'm curious, why was Spain chosen as your first as your first location outside the U.S.?
Well, we recognized no matter where we started, it was going to be hard.
Sure.
Uh, we came to Spain because we recognized the profound need for a modern, student-centered, holistic education.
Okay.
Interestingly, because I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Spain was led by a dictator until 1977, that the 20th century was really short. Innovation needs to happen in a context in which people feel safe, right? So one of the ways in which Spain is probably behind, despite being ahead of America in so many ways, being behind is just that the kind of industrialized approach to education
Mm,
is much more alive and well, even in this remarkable capital city than one might think. Teachers literally teach to the test,
yeah.
that is required to get into public and private universities in Spain, and the test that can also be used to get into places elsewhere in the world. But this test drives everything that teachers and students experience, and the boundary conditions for changing that paradigm are extremely high. We recognize that as an opportunity too, because a lot of people recognize that Spain is an amazing place to come to do to initiate some educational innovation, but it's also really hard given the politics and the bureaucracy and the ambivalence about change, and the very Sargent syndrome that seems to define the blockade to so many changes. You're probably familiar with the notion that
Sure.
the private is subjected to the tyrannies of the sergeant's treatment, and then when the
Yep.
private becomes sergeant, they
Well
subject.
put. Well put.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, in this new environment for you, the starting a school in Madrid, what decision was made on the language of instruction? Is this a completely Spanish speaking school? Does English play a central role? What's the approach that you guys take there?
We teach almost entirely in English, but
Oh
it's
wow.
uh, because there is a great appetite for students to learn English, and we also are dealing with kids from. We probably have 28 countries represented in our student body, even right now, and we're only
Wow.
entering our second year, and we have maybe 300 kids in total. And so the language of the realm is surely English, and we made that decision very quickly and very easily because it's what the consumers wanted, and it's also what we
Amazing.
know.
Sure. Well, that's definitely so. But it's always I've spoken to a lot of international schools and had a lot of conversations, and it's always such a question mark. Do you go the bilingual route, or do you pick one language as the centerpiece? And it sounds like obviously in our world globally, knowing English and being able to function in English is a huge advantage. So that makes a lot of sense. Creating, you mentioned, we talked about a couple of really important educational aspects that you guys are trying to solve. You mentioned the whole idea of teaching towards a standardized test, which is something that I think in many countries we are remains a significant challenge. And you also mentioned really what one of my favorite key phrases in education, which is student-centered learning. And I think that, looking back at our work here at Edu-Together and my work in the school system personally, I think that's always been the preferred method of doing things, and obviously the most desired method. What does that mean for BA International Schools when we talk about student-centered learning? Could you give us an example or two of how you're making sure that process actually happens?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. One I've answered a lot of times in a little different ways. Let me just take you through a kind of
Sure.
the stream of decisions that we make in order to ensure that we are serving kids the way they need to be served. And number one, we ask we have a pretty exhaustive application process, which is also unusual in Spain. It's usually if
Oh,
you want to go
really?
to school, for most schools, it's whatever, pay your deposit and tell us your name, and we'll put you on a roster. And parents were kind of surprised, like, you're making us fill out an application and get recommendations. You're interviewing our children. You're interviewing the parent. We're doing all of that to answer three basic questions. Can we challenge and support the child? Will the child and the parents partner with us in service to that challenge and support?
Very important.
Will the child add value to our community by virtue of his or her presence? And that's really, those are really simple questions. Getting answers
On
to
paper.
them, yeah, really hard. So we really dig in upfront to make sure that we're making mission appropriate decisions. And Brewster's mission is preparing diverse thinkers for lives of purpose. So we need to check all of those boxes in order to feel like we're making mission appropriate decisions. And then we work with kids in community with, I would argue, we spent thousands of collective hours in finding the right teachers who had the right spirit about them, who really are interested in teaching students and not teaching subjects, and who are interested in collaborating with other teachers in service to the learning needs in the community, who are interested in playing lots of roles, who are interested in being agile and adaptive as needs present themselves. All the stuff that makes really good sense if you've been in schools for a long time. But
Sure.
we look really hard for those. We got a couple thousand resumes last year and reviewed them all. We did well over 1,000 interviews.
Oh my goodness.
Five different people on our hiring
Wow.
committee, and we picked 39 people, right, for 150 kids. We did the same thing. We doubled in size this year. We added another 25 teachers, and same thing. I just this afternoon left our 3-week-long summer training program. We had the graduation today. Three weeks.
It's great.
And this group of 25 that we just brought in, one just stunning educator after another. Because the third thing we do is we train them. We train them really well. And the fourth thing we do is we make sure that teachers meet with other teachers who are in the lives of kids all the time. So we have this team-based approach, which I believe is very, very powerful. Teachers working with teachers to understand each other's perspectives on children, to shape those perspectives into actionable items. And
Incredible.
it happens 3-4 times a week. Teachers meet and they collect information and share information and communicate with parents constantly, and want parents to communicate with us. All of those things. But it's really, I think all of those are window dressing around the central practice, which is to understand that we have to hold all kids in unconditional positive regard, and that our every interaction with them sends them signals about what we think about them. We need them
So
to know
true.
that we love them and we trust them and we want to believe in them and we want to catch them doing the right thing. And when they make a mistake, it is incumbent upon us not to shame them or yell at them, but to sit with them and help them to exist in that moment, to understand what happened, why it happened, what they learned, how they can make right to themselves first and foremost, and to others as well. And it is, this education through relationships that's really kind of drives everything for us,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's you're definitely preaching to the choir, but and it sounds as an educator, what you're saying sounds so basic, but at the same time, I think we both know from experiences that this is not always the model that we unfortunately that we see, and it's so important. I'm a big believer, and I think you guys are too, that even a negative experience can be a learning moment, and we there's always a lesson that can be learned, and I think that the fact that you've incorporated that as part of your philosophy, and that's something that's happening at BA International every single day is so unique and so important. So that's really amazing to hear. I'm curious, are most of your teachers natives of Spain, or are these people who are looking for international positions who are moving from the US, or special for this position?
Almost all of our teachers are Americans.
Okay.
And many of those teachers came from other international schools, but a bunch of them also came from the United States because
Interesting.
they really wanted to be grounded in a real American school, but were attracted to Madrid. Madrid is just this, such a city on the rise, and if you read the New York Times articles about like where to, best places in the world to live, the best
Yeah.
city in the world is Malaga, right, in southern Spain this year. So they're catching that, and also, frankly, the political climate in America is so upsetting right now for so
True.
many. And there are a bunch of people who said, I want to be in. I like a lot about America. I just don't like America right now. So I want to go someplace that feels like an interpolation between America and another country. And that's why
Wow.
I arrived. Yeah.
So that's and like you said, with such you said you have all these applicants, but you're really picking. It sounds like the best of the best of the group, which really you guys must have the one of the best faculties ever created. It
Oh,
sounds incredible.
I learn more from them than they'll ever learn from me. And the amazing data point that I've never heard before is that every single teacher we hired last year came back this year.
Well, that is major.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
definitely special. I think even in the most successful schools, there is some turnover, but that's really incredible. So when can I come now? I'm kidding. Like, but it sounds like you've really developed a very special educational program, and a very special community. And I'm curious, one of the things you mentioned before in the intake process or the acceptance process is asking the question, are the parents going to be good partners with the school? And I'm curious to know, I think that's so important, especially if at the private school level, like what's the parent interaction going to be? What's the parent role going to be? What do you look for in your parent body, in your parent community?
Oh, it's such a good question to define that. It's kind of like when you ask a cowboy what a horse looks like, they just said it's a horse. Like you ask a teacher what a parent who's able to partner looks like, and it's about how people are entering the conversations about the school and about kids, their kids, when we don't know them. That's really when we have to make some decisions.
Sure.
And if they, and we're unabashed about what we believe. And if they're like, well, if their first question is how can you assure me that you're going to get my kid into Harvard, my 3-year-old into Harvard in 2041, you know, w- and, and we have had that's not all that crazy in this world. And we say, well, if that's really the first question you're going to ask, that raises some questions for us. Let's
Right.
talk about what role do you think a school should play in the life of a kid? Is it about credentialing, or is it about, whatever? I don't offer leading questions like that, but we really look and we watch how kids interact with their parents when parents are there. We watch how kids interact with us when their parents are not there. We're curious about how kids talk about their parents and how parents talk about their kids. What I can tell you is that having done literally thousands of interviews in my life, it's really clear uh, when when parents and kids have really generative, uncomplicated, loving relationships, and when it not.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the horse thing again. Like you can see a family that's working and you can see a family dynamic that's not working.
I,
And
I I happen to agree with you. I guess that both, I say that with a smile on my face and with a sad face as well, because obviously none of us like to see those families that aren't working so well. But I think what you say is really true, I think we see it in the families. I think we see it in the students, and really everything that takes place. So I'm curious. As a school, obviously you have a very a very strict acceptance policy. You're doing your interviews, you're going through the process. Obviously, along the way, from an academic standpoint, there are students that require support, whether it be academic, whether it be emotional, guidance, whatever it is. What kind of services do you guys have built into your school right now to be able to provide the extra support that might take place beyond the classroom?
well, I told you about the team, right? The team-based approach where there's a
Right.
lower school team, there's middle school team, upper school. This year we'll have two teams of teachers who are covering the lower upper school and the upper school, if that makes sense.
Okay.
We'll have a total of four teams, and each of those teams will be about 60 kids, right?
Wow.
And eight teachers. And on that team also are instructional support teachers. And these are not people who are doing homework help. They are people who are trained, who have degrees. In Spain, it's called psychopedagogy. It would be special
Okay.
education in the United States, and these are teachers who are trained to help kids who have language-based learning differences, attentional challenges, executive function challenges, anxiety issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those matters that get in the way of academic success, and we
Wow.
don't ascribe any fee to that, right? This is kind of the human condition. We want kids
True.
who have lots of different kinds of minds, because not just because we want to say, oh, we can serve lots of different kinds of kids, but we want those different kinds of kids in the classroom. It is not at all uncommon to discover that an attentionally challenged, left-handed, right-brained, dyslexic kid goes on to be Steve Jobs, right?
True. Yeah. I mean,
Or
we've seen it.
or Barack Obama, or on and on, right? And the and those are the kids who in so many circumstances, there's so many Steve Jobs, so many Barack Obamas who never got able to see the light of day enough to have a pathway to success because they were squashed, because they were told they were stupid, they were told they didn't try hard, right? That's the great one. And it's incumbent upon our instructional support teachers to ensure that those kids have the tools so that they can go into the classroom and actually make the learning environments better for others in the process they themselves learning. If I had a nickel and a bunch of kind of thoughtful, hardworking, dutiful kids who are kind of neurotypical, we'd be all set for all the middle managers we'd ever need for the.
Sure. I was going to say, like, the cubicle school, but that's obviously not
Right.
what we're looking for. And it just sounds. I'm so impressed because you guys are a young school. You've only been around for a couple of years, but it sounds like you have accomplished so much. You've been able to open you've been able to open multiple schools. You've been able to really establish a very unique and special academic program, supportive environment, and really, you sounds like you've been able to give a truly unique educational experience to the students and the families that are part of your educational community, which is such an amazing thing, especially in today's educational climate. And I'm curious to know, you mentioned you were starting in Madrid. What are the next phases planned for BA International? Where do you guys see yourselves going in the next few years, or the next several decades, hopefully?
Well, you'll be the first to know when we figure out a real
When you
plan.
figure it out.
We have lots of interest on the Iberian Peninsula, lots and
Oh,
lots and lots.
interesting. Okay.
Or even in our first year, we were for some reason ranked really high, as one of the top
That's
schools in
great.
and I don't quite know what the metrics were. No one's been able to tell me, but
You don't want to
uh,
ask that question.
yeah.
Just take it and go. No, I'm kidding.
But the so we got a lot of interest in that and that catalyzed a lot of interest in having us go elsewhere. So if you name all of the top spots, everybody knows what they are in Spain. All of
Sure.
them have reached out in one way or another. But we have interest also in East Asia and the Emirates and and interestingly in America for other version K through 12 versions of what the
That doesn't surprise me, by the way,
yeah,
because what the type of school you've created, I think there are certain places in America that don't have this type of learning environment,
right.
and I think what you're bringing, I think it can work in Europe and Asia, and I think there's a need for it too still in America, which is
Yeah, and I'm kind of on a mission to get a bunch of these open, not for ego-based purposes, but because I do believe that there is, if we've got some scale, then other people other schools are gonna be more inclined to copy us. And imitation is the highest form of flattery, of
yeah,
course, but it also just means that this funny little school, 204-year-old school on the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee in rural New Hampshire will kind of realize its vision, which is to this beautiful student-centered way of against a cosmically traditional backdrop, which is New Hampshire and this 204-year-old school. Somehow, this school has been able over time to cobble together this really beautiful way of thinking about
so
students'
amazing.
education. So that's
Amazing. What you guys have built and accomplished. I'm ready to jump on a plane to Madrid because I want to see this with my own eyes and then experience it. So maybe one day we'll definitely talk. But in the meantime, if people want to learn more about BA International or Brewster Academy and what you guys are doing, and maybe even how to apply and either as a staff member or as a student, what's the best way for people to get that information?
they could go right to either the Brewster Academy or the brewstermadrid.com
Okay,
landing page, because those websites talk to each other,
sure.
obviously, and they share the same language. There is an employment page there. There's an admissions page there. There's also just kind of some thoughtful narrative about kind of who we are and what we do. But honestly, I think there's no better way to really understand what we do than to show up and to not just kind of like
Of
walk around,
course.
but to be in classes in the presence of students and teachers while they're in the wild, right? You can watch them do
Incredible.
their thing, and it's just different. It's just different. The noise is different. The noise even changed last year in our first year, and the nature of interactions changed. And just to hear kids talk about why they feel differently about themselves as learners and as members of the community by virtue of having been there, and why teachers feel like they can get out of bed in the morning feeling like they know exactly why they're doing what they're doing.
Wow.
That is cool. It's inspiring to me that to
I,
go play witness to what they're all doing.
I think it's inspiring to all of us, Craig. And, it sounds like you guys are doing amazing work. I want to really wish you the best of luck for the new school year that's upon
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
It's going to be an incredible year, hopefully, and much continued success to your current schools as well as to the future schools that you guys will hopefully be building, and whether it be in Spain or all over the world, hopefully we'll look forward to continued highlights, continued success, and really what's most important, continued student success. Thank you so much, Craig Gemmell, the president of Brewster Academy and Brewster Academy International. Thank you so much for being with this podcast today and for talking to me. And we really are looking forward to a bright future. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you to you for catalyzing conversation uh, with people. Right? It's good to actually, and
It
this is
is once in a while. Yeah,
actually
yeah.
really nice to talk to people about. Right. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you so much. For those people who want to find out more information about our podcast series, please feel free to visit our website, www.edutogether.org. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in and looking forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.